First, we do a quick review of the sounds. So we'll just whip through these quickly and she'll just give the sound, not the name. And then we'll do a few of the opposite where I say the sound and she writes the letter. For phonemic awareness, I worked on onset and rhyme deletion because when I gave the past test assessment by Kilpatrick, that was where the student was at. So for example, I would say like bag, take away b. And so the student would say bag, b. And then we'd ask what's left, ag. So at first, the student wasn't able to do that just as automatically. So I did a lot of modeling, b, ag, b, ag. And I would just show the student how I would figure out the ag was left over. And then eventually, after a while, she got it, which was great. And then you would switch it and you might say, so rag, take away, ag, what's left? And they have to go, So that was our phonemic awareness activity today. This game was to practice listening for the vowel sound and identifying the vowel sound. So we would pick a card and say the word bug. And then the students go b, g. And then I ask where the vowel sound is, and then what letter makes the sound and there's lots of options on the board and everybody has the same board, but they get to cover their own space. So, there's lots of different U's, so they would cover their space and it's the first person to get 5 in a row wins the game. So last week I worked on these 2 word families. And so I spent a little time today reviewing those because they needed to be reviewed. But then the new learning was these 2 word families we worked on. Now, you probably know that about the N and the M, the sounds that they make, the N and the M are nasal sounds. So they distort the vowel before it, the A at least. And kind of when you say it, it doesn't sound the same as when you say like at. It distorts it a little and that can be confusing for kids. So I did spend some time just talking about that, not showing this, just talking about and am and how we say it, and we've already talked about the nasal sounds, so she knows that if you plug your nose, you can't make those sounds, but just that, just be on the lookout, kind of watch out, the sound might sound a little different with some of the words. So I did talk about that. We looked in the mirror while we kind of said those sounds with and am and compared it to at and app. So we did that first, and then we said, okay, we're gonna spell these word parts, and these also happen to be words on their own as well. So like if you do am, you can introduce it as a word and then kind of translate it to it's also a word family. But if it is a word, you use it in a sentence because that piece of connecting to meaning is so important. So use it in a sentence, and is kind of trickier because you can use it in a sentence, but that's kind of confusing for them. So I also sometimes say and is in lots of words like ran and can and man, and usually the student jumps in with words that they also know of too. So I'm connecting to meaning without any of this is not there for her. So she's not seeing any letters or words. She's just hearing me talk about it. And so she's connecting to what she knows, which is the pronunciation of the word and the meaning of the words that use that word family. So we spend some time doing that first. And then we go on to this part, the phoneme grapheme mapping. So I'll say it again, like and she can either pop it, or you can use the, what are these called? Bingo chips. And something really important that I noticed with this student and many other students, that if you just say and then have them break it apart, sometimes not so much with 2 phoneme words, but if it's 3 phoneme words, sometimes they get mixed up. So it's really important to have them say and. That I've noticed that really makes a difference, and then they break it up. So make sure they say it and then they write and. So then they write it there. And then I like these boards because you can just delete them so easily, but whiteboards are good too. And then do it again. So we don't just do it once, we do it a couple times, like, let's do it again. And then we'll start doing words in that word family. So we know and let's do the word man or can. And before we pop it, I also point out, because she had a lot of confidence at the end of this activity. So I pointed out, okay, so you have built an. You've written the word an. Now we're gonna do ran, an, ran. So then she comes back and she pops it, ran, an, or she does this, an, and then she writes it, ran. After she writes it, then I'll say, underline an, and it's surprisingly harder than you would think. Sometimes kids do struggle with finding that part. Underline an, ran, and then I might say, up here, let's do this again, an, ran, and just keep connecting that back. So I do that for a bunch of words in each word family. We spend a lot of time reading onset and rhyme, and I did notice that when putting them together, she was still at the point where she did need to sound these out and wasn't as confident in the difference, but that's okay with me, because last week there was a lot of me and my and am and just a lot more guessing, which we don't want. So I'm okay that she's wanting to go at just to be sure, and that just tells me we need more repetition. We're going to do more of this, and that, you know, even more spelling with it, but that just says we need a little more time to become confident. That just means it's not mapped there. It's not anchored. The word part is not. So I just want to put that in there. But so then we would do things like, she really liked when I fanned them and she got to choose one, like a mystery letter, and then she'd put it next to it and read it, and at, rat, and then, you know, say if it's a real word or not. And then again, that piece that like I was missing for a long time, which was, we're not just sounding at words, but we're taking a moment to say, what's a rat? Or what do you picture when you see a rat? Or telling a story about a rat, just something to connect to meaning. That's so important. That I had been missing that before. I wasn't doing enough of that. So I just make sure that I do that, so that can help anchor the word, so she can picture a rat, see the word rat, build the word rat, write the word rat. So trying all of that to help it stick. Because with some of our learners, there's a challenge with making words stick. So that's what we're working on. So we did that. We did a lot of, and then I kind of did a lot of like shuffling these around and saying, oh, let's see if we can read them, you know, kind of like more automaticity activity of like app, am, at, and, or, you know, going like this and just randomly, and let's read these words, you know, and see if they're real or not. So we spent a lot of time working on just these. Then we worked on this activity where she read the words k, at, cat, and then she would choose which one the cat is. And if we had more time, which we did not, I wanted to do this activity because it's again the onset and rhyme, but I was kind of worried it might be overwhelming because she was getting tired. So this will be the first activity we'll do next time. So she'll first read ag, and then she'll put together ag, rag, or cag, and decide which one's correct. So that might be our next activity. This student was not ready for a reading passage, and even just sentences were intimidating. So we did this activity instead that broke it up a bit.